out there, peeps? How do you feel about free healthcare? Yes, free healthcare around the world. Every human being will have access to free healthcare. Let's just take a quick look at the meaning of the word care. The provision of what is necessary for the health, welfare, maintenance, and protection of someone or something. Serious attention or consideration apply to doing something correctly or to avoid damage or risk. To feel concern or interest, attach importance to something. Look after and provide for the needs of. Those all apply to what I'm getting ready to talk about. The WHO organization is proposing free health care for everyone around the world. We're going to get into that here in just a moment. Before I get started, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. You know that when you do, it helps me get past the YouTube algorithms. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I surely do appreciate it. Right now is a great time to be buying gold and silver, especially now, because they are smashing the hell out of their prices. And you'll be able to buy it on a discount. You know, gold and silver is great protection against inflation, against a market crash, and it definitely will provide you some freedom. So if you're thinking about buying precious metals, go to our friends over there at Money Metals Exchange. The link will be down below in the description. If you are a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and you will get a free half ounce of silver. So there you have it. There's an open letter, by the way, that goes to the WHO's organization. You see, they want to give us free health care. Yes, free. Under the WHO's pandemic treaty. They are offering guidance and care to the people around the world. I'm going to let this lady explain to you exactly what it is. Take a listen.
Start off by telling us a little bit about what the World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty is.
So the World Health Organization intended or proposed pandemic treaty, as we understand it from the little bits of information coming out from the establishment, essentially gives the WHO an inordinate amount of power to make decisions in sovereign countries as to how people live and how they deal with pandemics, from lockdowns to mandates over treatments, and to really what people have started to consider a one-size-fits-all approach, which to date has actually not worked.
So that's the kind of health care. That's why I told you the meaning of the word care. They're not giving you free medical coverage. They're giving you free health care. What the WHO organization is proposing, and it's a treaty that once it's signed by the nations and ratified, which they're going to rush now to do this year, that means the treaty overrides our constitutional rights. It gives the WHO organization authority to declare when something is or is not a pandemic. The type of treatment that you have to take, regardless if you want it or not. Whether or not you should be in lockdowns, wear face masks. Our government wants to sign that treaty. When I said our government was getting way too big for their own britches, this is what I'm talking about. Most everybody does not know about this. Have they asked us for our permission? Our Constitution is very clear. You cannot enter into any treaties or create any laws that violate our constitutional rights. That's what it says, but when's the last time the Dems have ever followed and obeyed our Constitution? They don't. So it looks like this May coming up here next month, while everybody is being distracted by one thing or another, the WHO organization is voting to ratify this treaty. And it takes effect 90 days after it's signed. Then our politicians are going to go, don't blame me. We're not the ones deciding. No, but you put us into this treaty and now you're trying to force us to follow along with it. This treaty overrides the sovereignty of every single country, whether they want to or not. Let's listen in.
And so this would be a direct threat on the sovereignty of a country to make decisions for itself. It's unnecessary, it's expensive, it's going to cost countries millions to participate in the treaty process, as well as really erode the foundations of democracy in each country, many of whom have actually not even heard about this proposed pandemic treaty that the WHO intends to impose on member states around the world.
And when are they looking at starting up this pandemic treaty?
So they've started the process last year with discussions. They've formed an intergovernmental negotiating body, and they've now formed a working group to decide how this process will work in terms of this treaty and getting the buy-in of the various member states, many of whom have already signed up to the commentary that was released. And of course, again, most countries don't know about this, but it certainly does present a very serious challenge to sovereignty. And I believe that they're going to, well, they intend to confirm the treaty at the World Health Assembly in 2024. Now, the reason why I say I believe, and I don't say so with certainty, is because we know that circumstances, whether true or not, could be used to expedite this treaty and say, well, it's urgent for us to actually put it into place now in 2022, again, without public participation, which in our view, as the World Council for Health, certainly means that it is undemocratic, it is unconstitutional, and therefore makes the treaty invalid and unlawful.
Right. Yeah. And so I think one of the questions here is like, there's about 194 countries that are, part of the World Health Organization as member states. How is it that the World Health Organization in this case would make sure that whatever they set forth would end up being, I guess, by law, all of the 194 countries would have to participate?
Right. So they would need to go through a voting process at the World Health Assembly, and by a two-thirds majority can pass this treaty. But the other part that's very important to remember in terms of conventions and treaties signed via bodies like the WHO, which of course are not democratically elected, is that if a country signs up for the treaty and then decides it does not want to subscribe to this treaty, or it does not want to enforce that aspect of the treaty, sanctions can be imposed against that country, which of course has massive socio-political and socio-economic implications for any country that decides we actually don't subscribe to this anymore. We've seen what the WHO has done historically in terms of its many failures. Firstly, in terms of its track record, in terms of corruption, one can easily research the WHO and its history of corruption. And of course, Joe, that is intrinsically linked to conflict of interest. So if you've, of course, read the first open letter by the World Council for Health on the WHO's proposed pandemic treaty, you will see that we outlined the following: that the WHO cannot be allowed to control the world health agenda nor enforce biosurveillance while it receives funding from public sources.
Look at that, nor enforce biosurveillance. The surveillance that's under your skin.
Belonging to the people, it is caught in a perpetual conflict of interest because it also receives substantial funding from private interests that use their contributions to influence and profit from WHO decisions and mandates. And for example, of course, the Gates Foundation and the Gates-funded Gavi Vaccine Promotion Alliance contribute over $1 billion a year. So we're not dealing with a democratic institution or body that serves the needs of its people. And while this may be one treaty of many, Joe, that need to be challenged, it certainly is a way to bring people together to realize that the WHO should not be making any decisions about the world's health in future.
Yeah, I mean, it's the
Like I said, they want to provide free health care. The provision of what is necessary for the health, welfare, maintenance, and protection of someone or something. They want to provide free health care.
the implications seem rather large here, and I wonder, this is a pandemic treaty, but where, like, is it possible that it could extend into other health measures as well, or is it only if some form of viral pandemic were to take place?
Well, while it does say pandemic preparedness and response, given the WHO's constitution, and I would like to read certain clauses from it.
That's what I was talking about earlier. There is a constitution for the World Health Organization.
To you, one understands the inordinate amount of power that this institution has and how this treaty can be used using the WHO's constitution to essentially make decisions about any aspects of health. If you look at Article 2 of the WHO's constitution, in order to achieve its objective, the functions of the organization shall be to act as the directing and coordinating authority on international health work, to propose conventions, agreements, regulations, make recommendations, to establish and revise as necessary nomenclature of diseases. So the naming of diseases, whether or not experts concur that this is in fact a new disease, whether it's a pandemic or not. And we know the WHO has in fact changed the definition of what a pandemic actually is. Causes of death, again, a very controversial topic as to, even with regards to COVID-19, as to what was the actual cause of death and the inflation of figures, public health practices, standardizing diagnostic procedures such as highly problematic PCR, to develop and establish international standards with regards to food, biological and pharmaceutical and similar products.
Yes, tell you what you can eat and what you can't eat. This stuff's real, people. You have YouTubers out there lying to everybody, trying to tell you that the white hats are in control, that everybody has been tried, executed, and are clones. And there's so many people out there that believe this. Meanwhile, they're pushing forward. You know, the deep state and others. Yeah, just trudging on forward because people actually believe that the white hats are in control. No, they're not. Those people are lying to you. But you go on ahead and you continue to believe it. You sit back and not pay attention to the things that are happening around the world because you believe that this is some movie, that Trump is in control with a bunch of white hats, and the bad guys have already been arrested and executed. A bunch of clones running around. Yes, you tell yourself that, you believe it. Meanwhile, I'm going to bring you the real issues and the real news. And that is, your white hats seem to be missing this particular treaty. Your white hats seem to be missing the fact that the WHO organization has a constitution. This treaty would override our own constitution. We need to figure out which candidates that want to be voted into office, what it is they intend to do to protect us from the World Health Organization, to protect us from the World Economic Forum, to protect us from the Great Reset.
And clause V of Article 2, Joe, to generally take any necessary action to attain the objectives of the organization. So this is far-reaching power. And while it may seem one treaty and may seem a good idea in theory to those who don't understand the implications, for us at the World Council for Health, it clearly represents a power grab, consolidating the undemocratic mandates and lockdowns, etc., that have been forced upon people, sort of conditioning them to accept a new normal, and paves the way for these digital vaccine IDs, no access to services, places, and products, and constant biosurveillance.
Biosurveillance, there you go again. That's under the skin there. So they're going to tell you what you can and can't eat. They're going to tell you when you can and can't leave your house. And what kind of treatment you get, that's what they're going to do. How many of you out there are aware of this? I know, Pimpy, don't worry about it, man. Trump and the White Hats got this. I get it. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, that's it for now. Hit the thumbs up button if you're not a subscriber. Please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I surely do appreciate it. And I'll catch you later. I'm out.